I'm Mike Finlayson, and I'm Chief Executive of an organisation called Fourth Sector. We're based in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and we operate 3 businesses and a consultancy business where we sell our intellectual capital for a profit, which goes back into the organisation. The organisation is a charity, and it's a social enterprise. We employ around about 100 people, and we support a further 430 people. And the object of the organisation is very simple. We use real businesses to train, place and support people predominantly with mental health conditions, and with the aim of moving them on into mainstream employment. And our belief is that the best way of getting people into employment is to give them real work experience in a real competitive business. I think it's probably what people perceive as the tension between managing a business, basically, and meeting social aims. And I think that some people find that really difficult, but actually it's not difficult at all, because I think if you're running any business, invariably you are passionate about the business, and if you're passionate about any business, whether it has a social aim or not, then the business is much more likely to succeed. They fail quite often because there's a lack of expertise, a lack of focus on the commercial side of things, and they fail for structural reasons. Invariably, they're often too small to survive financially, and often will do things like run out of cash and just be undercapitalized, not enough funding, not enough money to be able to support working capital and investment. I think there are 3 things. I think the first is actually leadership, and leadership requires a very clear vision about where you're going to take the organization. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is really about actually good business skills. There's no substitute for that. You have to have good business skills, and if you haven't got them, you need to acquire them, but that's not too difficult. And the third thing, I think, is really around a kind of gathering people around you who can support you and know what they're doing, people that you can trust, who are also good managers, but actually also share the vision that you've got. The short answer is you train them, and there's no substitute for that. There are lots of industries that have got fairly unskilled workers, but I think that NGOs and I think social enterprises generally benefit in a slightly different way from workers, because usually they may not be skilled, but usually they're very committed. And if they're very committed, they'll be more likely to acquire the skills that you need to operate your business. But any business these days, any organization must spend time in training people, but actually also developing people. We have a process which we call management supervision, and it's about managing performance, it's about supporting people, and it's about developing them. And that's a very good way of mixing the 3 things and managing all of them. Motivation's everything, I think. And good motivation can get over some huge hurdles, some huge challenges. So it's critical that, first of all, whoever's leading the organization just has to be motivated, and if they're not, they shouldn't be leading the organization. As far as the staff are concerned, generally, usually, because there's a cause involved, a social purpose for the organization, that adds enormous value, particularly, for example, for young people. Young people love to be involved in something which has a social purpose. They have no problems with it. So give me enthusiasm every time, and I'll train and develop people. The worst thing is to try and train and develop people who are not motivated. Much harder work. You have to never forget why you're there. And if the business is meeting the needs that the organization exists, then fine. We've got two tests for our businesses, and they're quite tough tests. The first test is, does this business create an environment in which people can flourish? And by that I mean our staff and our clients. And if it doesn't, why would we be running that business? The second test is it sustainable? And if it's not sustainable, then you can't run it, whether you like it or not. And so all of our businesses have to meet those two tests. The other thing that we call bananas is we don't care if we sell bananas as long as it meets those two tests. And that's really important, that you don't get too hung up on the business and forget why you're doing this in the first place.